controversial topic here that we're going to get into next, and it is involving birthright citizenship. So I did a deep dive of birthright citizenship about 6 months ago because I am working on a series. I've been working on this over a year. I really need to move on with it. But I've been working on a series about immigration, specifically illegal immigration, and how it impacts the Black community. Because I do think that people, again, just like with climate, things become political that are touchy subjects. And they become political because when the government intervenes in certain situations and those situations start to, it starts to look as if American citizens are not being looked out for and we are taxpayers, then things that shouldn't be as political and controversial, they become that. And immigration is one of those things. So I've been looking into birthright citizenship, especially when Trump first was like, there were rumors that he wanted to end it. There was something people were wanting to end because of the Biden administration and illegal immigration and how it skyrocketed during his admin, and they were losing track of people. Folks were coming from China, crossing the border illegally through Mexico, South America. It's crazy. Like, the immigration situation is completely out of hand. Y'all might remember when Abbott over in Texas was busting them and flying them out and putting them in sanctuary cities. That's how we got that whole situation in Chicago, and the organization Chicago Flips Red emerged. They did press conferences about how these, what they now call migrants, the definitions changed. It's just a lot going on. And for me, y'all know I'm B1, I'm Black first. So I talk about things from my community, and birthright citizenship has become a topic of interest in Black America in a way that I haven't seen it or even understood it to be before. And that's because of the influx, again, like I said, in the fallout behind the sanctuary cities. So a lot of people in the Black community, despite the fact that Black Americans overwhelmingly vote Democrat and Democrats are in support of birthright citizenship, there is, tension brewing there. Then you want to add ICE into the mix and all of the stuff that's been going on with that. And then the hate crimes and things that the Black community are demanding, and seeing the Asian community get it, yet their community members are killing our community. It's just a lot going on for the Black American when it comes to immigration and birthright citizenship. Saying all that to say, some people supported it being turned over. So the Supreme Court actually made a decision on it this week, and let's talk about it. This article is coming from the AP, and it says the Supreme Court upholds birthright citizenship, rejecting Trump's restriction. So here's what to know. This is just before we get into the article. The Supreme Court on Tuesday upheld a broad conception of birthright citizenship, rejecting President Donald Trump's executive order declaring that children born to parents who are in the United States illegally or temporarily are not American citizens. So he's basically saying Trump is like, you can't come here and have your baby and they become Americans, and then you sit around and care for them, and you here illegally, even though your child is a citizen, and then you eventually get grandfathered in to be a citizen as well, or you live here illegally throughout your days. Black people are arguing, well, we'll get to that. It says the decision, in line with the long-standing judicial interpretation of the 14th Amendment, comes on the final day of a Supreme Court term that has centered on Trump's expansive claims of presidential power and largely ruled in his favor. Trump called the ruling too bad. Now, the 14th Amendment, let's look it up and read it, just so we have a baseline. I like operational definitions over here. I like for us to have an understanding of terms. And I'm just going to pivot really quickly to the AI overview of Google's 14th Amendment. It says the 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868 as a Reconstruction Amendment. We know that deals with black folks in slavery and all that. But anyway, the 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868 as a Reconstruction Amendment, guarantees birthright citizenship, prevents states from depriving any person of life, liberty, or property without due process, and ensures equal protection under the law. The amendment contains 5 distinct sections, each designed to address civil rights, the aftermath of the Civil War, and the legal status of formerly enslaved individuals. So the 14th Amendment was originally referring to Black Americans being citizens. This had nothing to do with immigration initially. So it has key clauses. There's a citizenship clause. It grants automatic U.S. citizenship to anyone born or naturalized in the United States, overturning the Dred Scott decision. So let's go a little bit into what the Dred Scott decision is. In Dred Scott versus Sanford, 1857, the Supreme Court held that African Americans were not U.S. citizens, even if they were free. So, self-explanatory. The 14th Amendment overturned Dred Scott by guaranteeing that everyone born or naturalized in the United States and under its jurisdiction is a U.S. citizen. It also made federal citizenship primary, preventing states from denying citizenship to freed slaves. So, in other words, Black folks enslaved or free, or not enslaved or not enslaved, were not considered U.S. citizens, even though they were on U.S. soil. This was their home. And they built the U.S. economy and the early stages of capitalism. Let's be clear. They were not considered U.S. citizens. So the 14th Amendment came about after this case, Dred Scott versus Sanford. And so it said that, okay, we know that African Americans, whether they freed or enslaved at this time, are not U.S. citizens, but we're going to rule that everybody born here or naturalized here is a United States citizen, period. And we're going to do this at the federal level because we know that states will still try to deny them their citizenship. So that's what the amendment is. It had nothing to do with immigration. It has been used to support a party's political agenda. And how can I put this? Basically being lax on immigration. As someone in the comment section put it really well. Let me find that comment. The Democrats used the 14th Amendment to circumvent the immigration laws. It was also an Indian Naturalization Act too that I want to talk about. Let me find it first. Indian Nationality Act. Let's look at that because that's key too. Now, this is the thing. People are saying, well, it wasn't just for Black people. It was for anybody. That is false. We just saw that it was for African Americans, enslaved or free. The fact that there was the Indian Citizenship Act proves to you that the 14th Amendment originally was dealing with Black folks. So the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924 granted full U.S. citizenship to all Native Americans born within the territorial limits of the United States. It resolved lingering legal ambiguities about the civic status of indigenous people. So it says prior to the act, even though Black Americans at this point were considered citizens, many Native Americans were denied citizenship, although thousands had voluntarily served in the U.S. military during World War I. The act declared all non-citizen Native Americans born in the U.S. to be citizens without requiring them to give up their tribal affiliations. So none of this had anything to do with immigrants. This was dealing with people who were already here, fighting in the military or enslaved to become citizens. It had nothing to do with immigration. So going back to the clauses, the due process clause prohibits states and local governments from depriving individuals of life, liberty, or property without fair legal procedures. This clause has also been historically used to incorporate most of the rights in the Bill of Rights to apply to state government. So you have due process as an American citizen. So this is also interesting because when you think about people who have crossed the border illegally, regardless of what their reasoning is, it is still illegal to cross illegally. There is an immigration process. Then now you have rights that you technically aren't supposed to have because you really wouldn't be considered a citizen. And then there was the Equal Protection Clause, which requires states to treat all people identically under their laws, ensuring that discrimination by race, sex, or other factors can be challenged in court. The 14th Amendment is really the key to the gripe of Black Americans right now. And I have talked in my broadcast over and over and over about how Black people are waking up to how our community has been used for political agendas without addressing our needs directly. So the gains that we have are now benefiting other groups while we have still not received reparative justice to right the wrongs that the U.S. government and global governments participated in that has led our community to be in the conditions that we are in today. So it does feel like a slap in the face to the Black community who understand that the 14th Amendment was dealing with ancestors. Because again, people in Chicago, they're here, the migrants is what they're calling them now. They are here. These people who cross the border illegally are here. When they got here, they received benefits that Americans do not receive while being put in predominantly Black areas. And it's not just happening in Chicago. I see it every day where I live. My neighbors are Hispanic. They are from Mexico. They have 4 children. And it has just been very interesting watching them since they moved here. And it's not just my neighbor, it's the neighborhood. And even when we go to our children's pediatrician moved into a clinic that serves, low income people, immigrants who don't speak English. And it's just crazy to see how mountains are moved for them when they get here, and our people who are taxpayers, who are descendants of the enslaved, don't get the help that they need. It does, at a certain point, you have to ask these questions, because if we don't, the gains that we got are going to continue to be used. Really, they're using them against us. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to be nice and politically correct, but it just is what it is. And we have to be able to talk about this stuff if we want to see something happen. My thoughts, I don't think that, never mind. We're going to go back to the article and then I'll bring all of that up. So it says, in its other Tuesday rulings, the court upheld laws in roughly half the states that prohibit transgender girls and women from playing on their public school and college sports team, and struck down limits on party spending in federal elections. Of course. Let's keep going. All right. So Justice Thomas says citizenship clause was enacted for people who were born in this country and called it home. Thomas, who wrote the main dissent, disagreed with the majority's opinion on birthright citizenship. The basis of his argument, among other things, is that the court ignored evidence from Reconstruction debates that suggested citizenship depended on a deeper relationship to the country. Not just that your parents were here, they made you, and you're now a citizen that will be able to help them get their citizenship. This is a business too. There are birthing businesses that specialize in women from other countries coming over to give birth in America so that their children can be citizens. It's a real business. And I was like, oh my goodness, Donald Trump is actually talking about something that really happened. Because I'm like, no, it ain't no business doing it. Like, no, they not doing it. They are doing that. They are doing that. So it says the citizenship clause was enacted for people who were born in this country and called it home. It was enacted for freed slaves such as Dred Scott, who had a domicile here and therefore were entitled to sue as citizens. Thomas wrote in his dissent, concluding that Reconstruction was a targeted remedy for freed slaves to restore citizenship to a wrongfully excluded group. There are over 30 countries globally grant unconditional birthright citizenship, meaning a child is automatically a citizen at birth regardless of the parent's nationality. This is most heavily concentrated in the Americas. Countries with unconditional birthright citizenship include United States, Canada, Mexico, Costa Rica, Cuba, Panama, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. In South America, Argentina, Brazil, Bolivia. Y'all see it. Now, look at this from the Pew Research Center. It says U.S.-style birthright citizenship is uncommon around the world. This was from March. We talked about the 14th Amendment. It says that broad language granting U.S. citizenship automatically to virtually anyone born in the country is now under challenge. The Supreme Court, we know they ruled to uphold it. Most countries in the EUI data set, 156 out of 191, automatically confer citizenship on newborns within their territory only if one or both parents are citizens. So it's not automatic. In 59 countries, at least some people can become citizens simply by being born there. In 52 of those countries, citizenship is acquired automatically. In the others, parents must apply for their children to be declared citizens, and officials have varying degrees of discretion in whether or not to approve those applications. It says, however, many countries restrict who can benefit from birthright citizenship. In 17 of the 59 countries mentioned above, citizenship isn't extended automatically to children of non-citizen parents unless the parents are living in the country legally. In 6 other countries, birthright citizenship only applies to members of particular racial, ethnic, or religious groups. That leaves 33 countries, including the U.S., where birthright citizenship is automatic and generally applicable regardless of the parent's legal status. So I can see why, if this is being abused or if it's becoming a problem, I can see why an administration would want to limit that. So people are, feeling some type of way about it, especially in the Black community. They feel like this is a loss, that this is ultimately going to impact us negatively. And that was kind of why I wanted to create this series and work on this series. It's just so much information you need. I don't want to put things out that are false. And I like to have my sources that you can go and look these things up too. But there is documented evidence that illegal immigration, whether they are called migrants or not, if they are here illegally, it does negatively impact the Black community. And so what do we do as a community when the party that represents us in terms of our rights and making sure that we don't lose the little rights that we got, because of the Republican Party, that party is in support of something that hurts us, and we're their voter base. And you have people like Dr. Claude Anderson. I'm sure if you followed this type of topic, you've heard his name. His name has come up. He was warning about immigration being something that Black people really needed to get an understanding of, because it was going to come to a point where our politicians would be delivering for them and ignoring us. And I think that we're seeing his words come to fruition today. But let's pivot just a little bit, because on the other hand, while birthright citizenship was upheld, the temporary protected status program was not. It might be over. And that was particularly prevalent in the news when it comes to Haitians. So let's go to a story from NPR talking about this TPS program. It says the temporary protected status program may effectively be over. Here's what we know. The future of the TPS program and the legal status of 270,000 people who still have it is at risk after a big Supreme Court ruling last week. The court's ruling allowed Trump administration to move forward with canceling TPS for two countries, Haiti and Syria. But it also underscored that the Secretary of Homeland Security decides whether to grant someone this status or end it, and it's not up to the courts to weigh in. That gives the Trump administration space to strip this status from hundreds of thousands more people. The Trump administration has already terminated TPS for 10 countries, so far affecting more than 1 million people. 4 countries still have TPS designations, but they're set to expire later this year. It includes Lebanon, El Salvador, Sudan, and Ukraine. So these are all places that the U.S. has their hands in. So this is really crazy because we live in this country. Black folks, y'all know how American politics get down. It's a colonizing system. And it didn't just happen here in the Americas. It happens overseas. So these countries that America has provided temporary protective status from are countries that America has had a role in destroying. So about 330,000 people, mostly from Haiti and a fraction from Syria, are immediately affected by the June 25th ruling. So that's where you see this discourse online about Haitians right now. And you know, some people are celebrating that this ended. I don't think that this is anything to celebrate. Only because the situation with Haiti, I feel, is different. And not just because Haiti's part of the diaspora, but we know what happened with the Haitian Revolution. We know how America has had a hand in destroying Haiti. We know how bad Haiti has gotten. Now, some people feel like, well, it's on Haitians. Why are Haitians here instead of not making their country better? And then they're here and they're talking down on us and they get opportunities that we don't have. I think that is really at the heart of why the Black community is divided on this type of issue, because some of your more radical people feel like, go to your country, you got a home, you need to go there and fix it. You can't just come set up shop in our country and then bypass us. And you're here on that program. But then at the same time, you know, well, what do you say when our home country, regardless of how we're treated here, what do you say if they have destroyed that place? You know, so it's a very tricky, controversial thing. And Trump is he's not being secretive about the things that he wants to happen. And he's going in and making it happen, pass or fail. And that's also a message that the Black community is receiving, because they're like, wait a minute, you can come in and make all these sweeping changes and you'll pay for it later, or you may get your way. And Joe Biden didn't do that for us. Obama didn't do that for us. So you mean you can use your presidential power in this way, or at least try to, and y'all didn't even try? So it's just a lot of things at play. And where I stand, I just feel like follow the process. Whatever is legal, follow the process. I do think that the birthright citizenship is more consequential for the Black community than the TPS program, but it's all a mess. It's all a mess. But I want to know where you stand on this. Let me know in the comments what you think about these programs, birthright citizenship being upheld. What are your thoughts about it? And we'll go to the next story. Next up, did you enjoy this clip? You can watch the full episode of Tell Me More on Patreon. Full episodes are available for both paid and free members. All you have to do is click the link in the description box to join and watch. See you there.